Beneil's not trying to avoid the traffic. Beneil wants to cause it.
But Beneil is using it incredibly.
Finish his takedown.
Beneil
In the octagon, but as Dean said, when you get older,
It came in number 9 in the world.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Beneil. I'm so excited to talk about your journey to success and how your Assyrian roots tie into everything. Like, you've really been putting us on the map, and it means a lot. But before we get into all that, I just want to say, it really amazes me how humble of a guy you are. Like, you go from being a complete savage in the octagon, and then as soon as you step off, you're like this humble, devout Christian who tells fans that we're booing Tony, at the fight, that they should still be supporting him after you demolished him. Like, how do you flip the switch like that?
By the way, it's my pleasure to be on the show and to be speaking with you. And as far as flipping the switch, to be honest with you, fighting for me has always been easy. It's always been my first nature, the way I grew up, in the areas I was at, if we had an issue, fighting was always the easiest answer for me. And, so with that being said, being kind, that's something I work on every day. Being kind takes time, it takes effort, and I would say it's much harder. It's much harder than being a fighter. Being kind is not something that comes naturally to me, so I work much harder at it. So I'm glad it's showing.
It's showing too much. Like, it does not come off as hard for you. It's very natural. I think you're very kind-hearted. What was going through your mind that fight night, especially with a full crowd?
Well, so before I walk out, I get a really good warm up in. I normally warm up between, I would say, 40 minutes to an hour. I get a warm up in because all the nerves. And then right before I finish the warm up, and I'll get about 15 minutes to just kind of sit down and to get my breath back. And just those 15 minutes are like a time of meditation and prayer. So I'm thinking that, I'm ready to go. Everything's good to go. No issues here or there. So now it's just, we got to get this thing done. I got to walk out. As I start walking out, to be honest, that's probably my most vulnerable. If you watch me walk out, it's because I'm so vulnerable. I use it as an opportunity to worship, and it always comes out. It just comes out well. I know it's the way I would put it is, as I'm walking from the arena inside the octagon, I go from my most vulnerable to the strongest possible a man I can be. As soon as I step in that octagon, in my mind, I can't be beat. So it's a really interesting dynamic. And then once I get in there was a lot of booing. This was the most booing I've ever heard. And to be honest with you, it didn't really bother me. I was like, surprisingly, I was prepared for it. I just thought to myself, they could boo me all they want, but I've put in all the work I can put in. I've left no stone unturned, and whatever is going to happen is going to happen. But it's not going to be because they booed me.
No, 100%. And you had a couple of Assyrian fans that flew out from all over to come see you, and you treated them afterwards, met them. It was really nice of you. How was that?
They came from Ukraine.
Oh my gosh.
Like, when they told me they came from Ukraine, I was like, man, I was just a kid fighting a couple of years ago, and selfish kid at that. And then I have people from Ukraine coming to see me. It was very humbling. It just reminds you, hey, don't be don't be somebody that they don't want to support. Go, continue to work at being kind, continue to do the things that are not natural to you, and continue to support your countrymen, and because they support you and they love you. So make sure you love them more.
100%. You're definitely our nation's pride and joy right now. This is something that I wanted to ask from what you brought up earlier. Aside from your worship time before your fight, do you have like a pre-fight ritual with music? Do you listen to any type of music to pump you up?
Surprisingly, no. As far as being pumped up, if you touch me, like you touch my skin on the day of the fight, it's I'm already warm. I'm on fire. My wife always tells me like the day of the fight, it's just different. It's a different day. She can feel it. I can feel it.
You
It's
sense the vibe.
it's just a natural. There's a natural fire. I don't need music. I don't need people to talk me up. I'm at my I'm at my most natural environment.
What do your conversations with your wife look like on fight nights or like your fight days? Are you totally different? Like, does she know at this point? She's like, all right, I'm just going to leave him alone today. Or is it?
She does, but she also knows that there's things that need to be taken care of. I would say our conversations are very short, and my answers are either yes, no, like things like that. We don't get too deep into it. But this fight was a little different because normally I'll get up in the morning and I'll fight in Vegas or in California, and I'll fight earlier. I'll fight around like 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So by the time I need to leave for the arena, it's like I leave for the arena at 1 o'clock. So everything happens real fast. This time I fought at 10:30. So I didn't leave for the arena till 7. So I would say all the way breakfast all the way through noon felt very normal. Everything felt really normal. And then after I did everything I was supposed to before noon, I went back, took a nap, woke up, and then everything got a little bit more serious, I guess you would say. That same energy came back. I remember taking a nap and waking up and just feeling like, oh my gosh, I have it again. It's everything's warmed up. I don't even need to break a sweat right now. I'm ready to go.
For sure. Well, you have a lot going on in your life right now. From like you have a chance at a title shot, you're sitting on an impressive 7-fight win streak, and you have a baby on the way. And Tesla sent you a little something recently. I can't do this interview without mentioning the whole Tesla thing that blew up. So how are you feeling about all this stuff happening in your life?
Everything's incredible. You know, all the everything that's happening. I'm very grateful for it. The possibility at a title shot, the car, this and that. But man, when people mention my daughter, I forget everything else.
I saw your smile. You just lit up.
Yeah, as soon as I think about my daughter and when she's coming, I just can't think about anything else. You know, she's due June 26th. But the thing is, my mother-in-law was always early. So there's a possibility that my wife might be early as well. So I'm just sitting here. I'm just sitting here waiting. I'm telling you, I can't explain it. I don't feel like I'm ready to be a father, but at the same time, I feel like I'm ready to be a father. I've taken care of my nieces. I've walked through everybody else's shoes to see how they do it, and I've read books. I've listened to things, and I've taken advice from people. I've done it all, but I know when you go to the hospital and you're done there, and they say, "Here you go. Here's your baby. See you later." I know that's going to be something different. I don't know how we're going to deal with that and what the next steps will be, but I'm looking forward to it.
God's got you. You've definitely got this covered, and I know
Praise
you're
God.
a great dad. That's exciting. June 26th, maybe earlier. I'm June 23rd, so that would be cool if we end up being birthday twins. But
Yeah, you might be. There's a lot of June babies. I got to say, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, I'm June this, I'm June that."
yes, it's exciting. It's a great time to be and you got these next few months off, so it's going to be great for you to really like settle in and get the feel of it. But you've mentioned a lot of times before that you felt overlooked in your journey. Do you still feel that way?
At the moment, definitely not. I mean, sometimes still, I guess. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I never really cared. My only thing was I want to fight the best guys in my division. And if I'm overlooked, they're going to ignore me. They're not going to want to fight me because unfortunately in our business, you have to have a following to also get the big fights. If you don't have the big following, it's a lot harder to get these big fights. So that's the only reason I cared that I wasn't getting attention, is because I couldn't get the big fights. I could care less if people watch me or not. I want to take these God-given gifts and use them to the best way possible. And that's to fight the best people in the world. So I feel like I'm getting the attention that I deserve right now, which is great, but still want that belt, because without that belt, I can't fight who I want to fight, which is all the best guys. And I have a list of how I would want to do it anyways.
Yes, I'm going to go into that later, but you said Oliveira owes you a fight. So we'll get into that. But I just want to mention, I was rewatching the press conference before your fight when Tony was talking all this mad crap and you were just sitting there like, oh, okay, like fine. And I got to say, it was so much more entertaining to watch after your win. But there was something that stood out to me in that presser. It really stood out. Tony kept mentioning that because he's Mexican, he's underpaid. And you brought up a very valid point about Canelo being Mexican and one of the highest paid. And then you brought up that you were born in Iran and had to come here as an immigrant, but you don't go playing that card to complain. Like you let your work do the talking. So
And this whole thing with like, because I'm this race, I don't get this, is garbage. It's garbage. It's not going to help us improve. You make yourself a victim, you'll never get anywhere. You'll never get anywhere. People may hand you stuff, but because you haven't worked for it, you'll never be able to take care of that thing. Because you haven't done the work that's required to build you in character, you won't be able to support whatever that's given to you. So I don't like the whole, because I'm this, I can't have that. It's not true. You can do whatever you want and be whatever you want, especially in America. It truly is the land of the free. And I to be honest with you, I do worry about what's going on in our country, but I believe it's in God's hands, and it's all going to work out.
100%. And I just want to talk about that though, just about your background. We have the same background. We're Assyrian. We're from a nation. No one knows when they ask me, oh, are you Hispanic? Are you Italian? I'm Assyrian. Oh, what's that? Syrian? No, not Syrian. That's a totally different thing. So let's talk about what has been the most difficult moments you've had to overcome in your life so far, whether it has to do with being an immigrant or not.
For me, for a long time, I idolized winning. So it was, which is, by the way, wrong. The only idol is our God. That's the only thing we should worship. Because I did that, I went through a lot of tough times. And even after I stopped idolizing it was still important because it's my job. Winning is very important to me. And there was 2 years where I didn't have a win. And those were very difficult years for me. One of the things is when I was going through these losses, when I had this 2 years of just difficulty, because I went through this desert, and instead of just giving up my faith, giving up on everything I had, the Lord took that opportunity and while I was going through the desert, he starved the flesh off of me. When I say the flesh off of me, I mean all the things of the world. He just brought me closer to him. And through that, I actually got stronger. I came back and now we're on a 7-5 win streak. It's hard to explain that to people because people just don't understand it. They don't understand what that means. And I always tell them, if you have a relationship with the Lord, you'll understand. It'll be easy to comprehend what I just said, but it depends on you. I can't make that happen. But yeah, you were telling me about your Assyrian mom.
Yeah, you know how it is when you have an Assyrian mom. Like, you know what I mean?
Amen.
So
Yeah. Praise God. Yeah.
Yes, having that faith, and just I think being Assyrian and being Christian, with us being one of the oldest civilizations and oldest church with the Syrian, with our churches, that it's sort of comes in hand. So I definitely relate to you on that level.
Yeah, people don't realize this, but Assyrians were one of the first people to accept Christ and Christianity, and I think it's one of the reasons why we're still around. I heard my friend is from Georgia, Republic of Georgia. He told me actually Assyrians brought Christianity to Georgia, so I thought that was the coolest thing I've ever heard. So I was really excited about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Assyrians and Armenians as well. Both very one of the few or first civilization or nationalities to do that. But what is something most people don't know about you? Behind the scary, intimidating Beneil within the Octagon, and then like the humble, amazing one outside of it.
If you would leave me to my own to my own devices, I'd just be a fat kid. I love food. I just eat all day, man. I've I when I fought, I had to weigh in at like 155, right? Or 156 is what I made. That's the weight class. The next day, normally you gain a ton of water weight back, so I was about 175. Today I'm like 185, 186. I'll probably be 190 by the end of this week, and then we'll start coming back down.
That's perfect because I have a question later that'll tie into it. Maybe I'll just ask it now. It's in Assyrian because we're gonna do that
Pocket.
Assyrian pocket. Mudila micholta dioch di like bush machibet. It could be it's Aturaya or Iranaya.
Aratila chipte. Yemi chipte çoda. Ukta basımtla. Hoş çete chipte. Mama çoda dolma çalam hoş çete. It's in roba. Şu khat takhminen Allah.
Okay.
La chipte number 1 is chipte for sure.
Ina imachbet bushki machibet micholta Aturaya and it's Iranaya.
خراجت يمي دوزوتو تانا يمي هذا يمي زرز قرمه سبزي رو باسم تواير يمي بعد لشبت الدولمه رو شو مت يمي زرز رو باسم تشو كذا فرق لده اويت ايرانايا سورايا اختي يمي اويا بشلتو
اوكي اب فارسي همزه مت
فارسي خط شاتن خير بالليل فارسي لازم اويا شمسن همزه من إنه
I'm born here. I speak 5 languages, but Farsi isn't one of them. One day.
5. Jeez, that's impressive. I got like 2.5 because my Farsi is not that good.
No, we'll say 3.
Okay, cool.
So, we don't know when or what your next fight is going to be. You have the next few months off, but you have a chance at the title shot, as we mentioned, and you mentioned Oliveira Ozio fight. So how do you see all this playing out later?
Ideally, for timeline, I would like to fight in December. I told him late November or December. That's the earliest I'll fight. And obviously, I hope it's for the title against Charles Oliveira. As far as how it's going to play out, it's a little bit tricky because you have Conor fighting Dustin Poirier. The winner of that fight will be more popular, so they're more likely to get the title. But at the same time, they also have a lot of contract issues when they try to get a title fight. They always want for more, they ask for more money, and they struggle and things like that. So it could be tricky for them, you know. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there. But there's also a guy named Justin Gaethje who's very good. So it all depends on how their fights go and how their negotiations go, and then when Charles wants to fight and who he wants to fight. You know, twice he was it twice or once he didn't fight with me. He refused and fought someone else. So I don't know if he's gonna say yes.
We'll see about that. But back to more of your roots and your journey. Having, you know, with you are the first Assyrian fighter to reach this type of success. So the fact that, you know, your parent, it's not like, you know, all these Assyrian parents are used to dealing with something like that. So how did your parents deal with, you know, you coming up to them and saying, I want to fight, I want to do this? Like, were they receptive of it? Were they, you know?
Before I go over what my parents thought, I just want to say the first Assyrian to fight in the UFC was Bassem Youssef. And then we have another guy named David, who's from Sweden, and his brother Daniel. They're also extremely good fighters, and they're in the UFC as well. I just want to make sure I give a shout out to those guys because Bassem started it, and we have a few more guys in there as well. And as far as my mom goes and my family goes, they all thought it was a joke at first. They really did. They were like, "What are you doing? Stick with school. This isn't what you're supposed to be doing." You know, I thought you were going to be an accountant or like something in business. You know, my that's what my degree was going to be. It was something. It was like finance. Can't remember exactly what. I think accounting, but it was focused on accounting. Yeah. So I was the black sheep, but you know what actually turned it around? even before I went to the UFC, I was fighting for local shows, professional fights for local shows. And the Assyrian community one day heard about it, and they flooded my fight. I normally sold like 50 to 70 tickets. I must have sold triple that or quadruple that, and people showed up, and I didn't even know who these people were, and the crowd was just going nuts. It was incredible. And ever since those people showed up, and then they started messaging me on social media, and they started messaging my mom and all my family all of a sudden was like, what's going on here? Like, why is the community so behind him? What's going on? And it was actually the community that really helped me out. The Assyrian community helped me so much that my parents were like, okay, maybe this is legit. And I went from being the black sheep of the family back to being the golden boy.
Yeah. Now do you basically just get everything you want from your mom at this point?
Not quite. She's not a big fan of me losing weight, so she doesn't really like that. And then she always has something to add. She's like, well, why don't you do this, or why don't you do that?
That's part of being Assyrian, honey. Like that's all of us. Like
right.
Going into when I said graduating from high school, I used to sing like in the Assyrian nation, travel, do that, and we all thought that's what I was going to do. And then I wanted to stick with school and university because I was a nerd. So I was like, I'm going to combine my talents of like media and like entertainment, but also sports and writing and talking. And so I'm like, I'm going to do sports journalism. And my family's like, no, you're not. You sure about that? Like, that's what you want to do? Like at first, I'm like, yeah, because there's no money in sports or entertainment until you really make it. So
yeah.
Like, you sure you want to do this as a career? I'm like, yeah. And I've stuck to it, so I feel you. But have you had moments, and this is for more of the younger generation that looks up to you, have you had moments where you've chosen that path and not everyone people have doubts? Did you ever have a moment of doubt within yourself where you almost like gave up?
I was pretty hard-headed, so when I started training, I wasn't even doing it to be a competitor and a fighter. I was doing it just for fun. But when I started competing and I started winning, it just kind of took over everything. And with every tournament I won, I got a little bit more confident, and I became a little bit more hard-headed. And then there came a point where I was like, no one's going to change my mind. This is what I'm going to do. And fortunately, even through that, I can glorify God. So I'm super grateful for where I am right now, because I was a lot worse than this before.
Okay, so let's do the Assyrian part of the interview. A few questions.
Let's do it.
So, Aten min mut mditewit tia.
أنا جو أهوز بالدنيتين إن جو تابه هماشا بيم جو تابه إلى خاماتها جو أرمي قربت مية مسؤوليتي تامة جلوسن جو تابه هل أتصاشنه خرطتي لنا مرشة إذن كيتا شوية جدير أخوة إيران شازم جو تابه أربع خمساشن درن أنا هماشا بين جو تابه.
Okay, so at مودي لأون من دي بوش مخنية منه من أطرة إيران.
ناشي جو تابنا خزمناني اتلي ناش أخسروبنا ناش تام بين خزنون إنا تريشن سربازو يطلع خاجة خيشنانا إسرائيل عادي دارن بخشان دوزرا بيلي جو زندان or yeah. That's just the way it is. إسرائيل من إيران دجمنينا. إن إذا خشلي إسرائيل 5 ساعات كاش دفكلون جو فرقا جو airport. ليه بشواك بهوتن.
Okay.
هرب مني باكور و دائمو باكور و بعضی می خاطر أسرع سوال questions بکری والی خاطر من اوکی. سه أشبي 5 دقيقة مسبري والي خاطر بدير ما مدري بكري والي خاطر هرات خبد لهم كأربع 5 ساعات. Anyways, من تام بلتلي إسرائيل خشلي قدرن سايت سين وشون بقارته يعني شلون قدر يخنا جو إسرائيل السودان تبروبا خوش تيل روبا دران يمي ميرا خنا ليش أوكي عدت إيران أنا مري أوكي خنا that's it
مودي لا أقرتوخ ككل مغبانوخ أطورايا.
تزوتو تان نا أسي I'm just grateful I'm داري مزر تان نوخن أسي باين تان get grateful من لتلي خبرة كت طالبن يا خمني تان أسي باين تان كت أخصد خوبا كاي مغزيتون أنا بيشن خبرة ليل بياش جو بومي من دور يمي مرا اوكي شمست بالشيت من دور ما انا خبره الليل اختي خوبات لي كاتوخن ان لا يا Assyrian community عادي انا بلشت هلا من يمي لامج او الخبره it's I can't put it into words it's too big
No, I feel that. That's awesome. What يهمزمت سورة اجت يوت من يمخو بابخ ين لا.
هي من يمي بابي سورة شمزخ بابي بوش خدش خزنه چون truck driver ایله اینم بابا ده منو سورة شمزه من این زوده من یمی گاجور رسله.
Yeah, it feels so weird for me, like ever doing an interview, like doing work related things and speaking Assyrian for the first time ever. Like it's really cool, you know?
The few interviews I've done in Assyrian, I was like, wow, this is really hard.
Yeah, it is. And it's what were you saying?
خبران nog فرق بعدنا dan من nog باكورنا دجري put it together. You put it together in Assyrian, it's different. خطتاتون وايلا.
Yeah, bush.
شوكي لي من يما بابي رات همزمنينا then interview بعدنا خط bush chatون وايلا.
أنا أدخل على إنه كيمي من كم وادن وانترفيو من أخمري كموسي like Assyrian دي لشاني كتمي هم زمانة إن هذه تايلا دانا قطع دانا جو interview bush chatون وايلا.
لما داي عنده روبا تشالوشن then جو interview واي. لشاني بدباكله.
Totally normal, but this was awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. It's such an honor to sit and speak with you. You are making our nation so proud, and I look forward to interviewing you many more times during your career when you find so much more success.
God willing. Thank you for everything, young lady. I appreciate the interview. Lord bless you.
Lord bless you too.